Hi and welcome to Four Wheels Good, the only weekly motoring programme to run right the way throughout the year without the need for a regular service. Well, this week we take another preview of this year's Formula One season, where this year not only Michael Schumacher will be racing, but also his younger brother. What does Stirling Moss think of the newcomer? Is winning in the Schumacher blood? I would have thought so, but we'll find out later. Also, we'll see how it really is possible for a car to drive itself and also to actually recognise road signs. And Mike Rutherford reports from the Amsterdam International Motor Show. But first of all, do you remember the Ford Coupe concept revealed at last year's Geneva show? Well, then it was called the Lynx. Well, the animal name may have changed, but the personality of the beast remains. The Puma is due to be launched at next week's Geneva show. But we've obtained the first video footage here on Four Wheels Good. Peter Baker reports.
Talk about déjà vu. When the Ford car was launched, I was saying how the concept version at the Geneva show was so well launched, Ford actually put it into production. And my script is virtually the same now. This was how we saw this Ford Lynx concept car last year. We were stunned by the sleek, swooping lines and also the wonderful high-tech interior. We all wondered when we could buy one. That time is now. Ford once again have listened and responded. And just like the car project, the Puma is based on the much-praised chassis and suspension of the Fiesta, and this time hones the parameters to aim the Puma specifically at the driver who appreciates performance and handling. Built in Ford's Cologne plant, where the Fiesta is also manufactured, we understand that the price of the Puma will be around £15,000. This is Ford's first car which is completely computer designed. Many variants were put together on the CAD screen before being made into a traditional clay model.
The design brief was to create a very exciting car with perception of performance and very distinctive styling. The advantage we had using the computers was that we were first of all able very quickly to show models, actual models built on the design themes that we created on sketches, and then also to share almost instantaneously the ideas with our colleagues in England by transferring the data and of course keeping in touch with engineering. It was a way of simultaneously working in a very synergetic way. If you look at the car, I think what you'll see first is a perception of performance and a lot of fun to drive this car. You really like to jump into the car and drive it. I think Puma will change or improve Ford's image even further. I mean, we have started already with the last products to improve our image, and Puma will just put one on top of it, just proving that we are able to do this very exciting niche markets products.
Much work has been done on the aerodynamics, while styling has been taken from the much heralded New Edge design school. The Puma isn't as bizarre as the car, but the similar headlights on the softer design with the lower body mouldings add up to quite a sexy package. The new 16-valve 1.7-litre engine will produce 125 brake horsepower, giving a claimed top speed of 125 miles an hour. The interior looks fantastic, space-age brushed aluminium and the curves upon curves that wowed us all with the Ford car. The huge built-in radio may not give you flexibility to change, but at least thieves won't be tempted. But what's it like on the road? We can't wait, and we've still got weeks to go. We've still to check the acceleration. The top speed is 125 miles an hour, but the Puma will be heavier than the Fiesta. The Puma's size is 6 inches longer than the Fiesta, about the same size as the rival Tigra. But just who exactly is Ford aiming this new stunning coupe at?
We've deliberately set the dynamics of Puma up to appeal to the real enthusiastic driver. The Fiesta platform has already been acclaimed for its ride, handling, steering compromise. In the development of that car, though, we all knew that underneath it all, there was a real sports chassis there. So with Puma, we've revisited every facet of the steering, tyres, suspension, everything, and tuned it so that its turn-in sharper, its body control is much tauter, to give a real thrill on the corners. It's a true delight. Puma's main competitors in the marketplace are going to be the Opel Tigra, which was introduced, I guess, 2.5 years ago. Last year, Renault introduced the Megane Coupe, which has probably achieved sales dominance so far in the segment. And then towards the high end of the segment, there's the Fiat Coupe, which is a little bit larger, but is also considered to be in the small car coupe segment. Slightly further up the market, there's the Probe Opel Calibra market, which is, let's say, the Mondeo size. But the sort of customers who buy coupes move between these marketplaces quite readily. They want to see what's new out there, and they go and buy it.
The new Ford Puma will be revealed officially at next week's Geneva show. Well, the top-of-the-range Fiesta can be a thrill to drive, but a car based on the same chassis, yet with a more rigid body shell, sporty dampers and anti-roll bars should be incredible. We can't wait to drive one.
Well, Ford tells us that the projected sales of the Puma for the first year is only 5,000, which makes the car a low-volume product for a company such as Ford. So if you do fancy a Puma, you better place that order right now. Another new Ford product, but a completely different type of vehicle, is on sale. Ginny Buckley flew to Scotland to drive the new Ford Explorer.
This is the world's most popular off-road vehicle, the Ford Explorer. Since its launch in 1990, over 2 million have been sold. And yes, it's about to hit the streets of Britain. Yes, the US-built Ford Explorer is now on sale in the UK for the first time. Chrysler set the standard for American off-roaders when it introduced the Cherokee to Britain. They followed this up with the Grand Cherokee, current holder of the Off-Roader of the Year title, and have just introduced the Grand Cherokee Laredo. So it looks like the gloves are off for a battle of the American legends with good old British tradition in the shape of Land Rover.
Land Rover at the moment is the market leader in this segment, and Chrysler's done very well in the last few years. But you've got to remember that this vehicle in the States outsells the Chrysler Jeep Grand Cherokee 3-2. So we think it's got a lot of credibility, and we're bringing it to the UK market with a very good specification for the price. So we think we've got a significant price advantage over our competition, and we're quite confident that we will be able to sell and the demand is there.
Some fighting talk there from Ford UK. At first glance, it's easy to see why the Explorer has been so popular with the American market. It looks rough, tough and rugged, and all that chrome simply couldn't have come from anywhere else other than the States. That huge grille on the front adds to its great looks, making it a real head-turner. Take a closer look, and the high levels of equipment and the price. £25,870 make it a surefire winner over here in Limey Land as well.
We sell so many in the States that we can get the economies of scale, and therefore we can specify the vehicle to a high standard but still bring the price in at, we think, a competitive price in this market.
The Explorer is powered along by its 4-litre V6 engine with a 5-speed automatic gearbox. It's capable of making 0 to 60 in a very impressive 9.6 seconds and can reach a top speed, law permitting of course, of 100 miles an hour. It produces a massive torque that makes the Explorer a keen and eager overtaker. Mind you, the sight of this giant powering along at the side of you is enough to make most motorists squirm and get out of the way. Inside the Explorer, the cabin feels spacious and comfortable, and better still, it never feels as big from behind the wheel as you would imagine. The driving position is comfortable and there's extremely good visibility. As you'd expect from a vehicle that's been at the top of the American charts for some years now, equipment levels are extremely generous. It includes all the usual powered windows, powered mirrors, sunroof, remote central locking, as well as some nice little luxuries, air conditioning, cruise control, and even a built-in compass. And as we've been given this vehicle to test in the middle of the Scottish Highlands, a compass could come in extremely useful. The Explorer certainly felt at home in the Highlands of Scotland, and it even managed to manoeuvre its way around a mini off-road circuit. But it's on urban roads that the Explorer will be spending most of its time, so it's important that it can perform well on them. And it does. The ride around town is surprisingly smooth and comfortable. The Explorer handles well, even on the sharpest of corners. When your foot's down, there's a fair amount of cabin noise, but get onto the motorway and there are no such problems. When you're cruising in fifth, the Explorer has the comfort and ride quality of an executive saloon. The Explorer doesn't have full-time four-wheel drive. In normal automatic mode, only the rear wheels are driven. But if the going gets tricky, a computer automatically cuts in the four-wheel drive, splitting the power between both front and rear axles. Ingenious, eh? It also has a pretty clever automatic gearbox.
It's a marvelous, piece of ingenuity that we actually did. It's the 4-speed transmission, but with the computer control that we have and electronic shifting, we can put a 5th speed in between the old first and the old second, and it gives us a lot of flexibility and comes up with a much better matched powertrain.
Well, all that technical stuff sounds fantastic, but how will it benefit the man in the street when he gets behind the wheel?
What he'll see is improved flexibility when he's driving. If he puts his foot down, he'll get a gear change that's much smoother and quicker. It's better responsive. And when he's pulling away from a traffic light, he'll instead of having a big gap between first and second, he gets 2 shorter gaps, which give a much smoother feel.
The one thing that lets the Explorer down is its interior. That sculpted grey dashboard may look modern, but there's a total overload of plastic that looks a bit cheap and nasty. Having said that, all the switchgear is logically placed, and it has the good old obligatory American cup holders, and also an abundance of storage areas. There's plenty of space in the boot as well, and it comes with some quite thoughtful additions, like the handy pull-out parcel shelf and a superb dual-entry tailgate that gives you the choice of opening all of it or just the rear window. There's enough room inside the cabin. The front seats are positively luxurious in size, and even in the back, which is traditionally cramped in 4x4 vehicles, it can seat 3 adults and their long legs with ease. The headroom is also good, even with the addition of the electrically operated sunroof. The wheelbase was a touch too long for my liking. Even with various electrical seat adjustments and the addition of an adjustable steering wheel, my little legs were slightly stretched. Overall, the Explorer is hard to fault. It's difficult to say exactly how well it performs in really tricky off-road conditions, but I suspect from the taste that we have there'll be no problems. On the road, however, there are no complaints. I enjoy driving it immensely. It may not have the distinctive style, looks and on-road presence of the Grand Cherokee, but its performance and excellent value for money will make it a really good choice, and I'm sure it will soon be a very familiar sight on our roads.
Ginny Buckley there, our reporter with the new Ford Explorer. Well, after the break, Mike Rutherford will be showing us some new sporty racers, a staged car crash, a ponce in a suit, and a rather nice lady riding on the back of a pig. Yes, it's all filmed at this year's Amsterdam International Motor Show. Join us then. Hi, welcome back. There are many new vehicles revealed at this time of year. Next week, Ginny and Mike will be reporting from the Geneva Motor Show, where there'll be plenty of news. Well, Mike travels to most of the shows around the world. He took his camera to the recent auto show in Amsterdam.
Well, this was the first for me. I've seen plenty of cars crashed on the way to motor shows, but I've never seen a car crashed at a motor show. And thanks to Volkswagen, we saw that at Amsterdam. They piled a small Polo into the side of a stationary vehicle, and you can see who came off best. It's the day when it was announced that the Volkswagen Polo, along with the Ford Fiesta, are the safest small super minis on the market in front-end crashes. The least safe, I'm sorry to say, is the dear old British-built Rover 100, which was formerly known, of course, as the Humble Metro. Well, lurking in a dark and gloomy corner at the Amsterdam show was Honda's SSM 2-litre engine, the 2-litre VTEC engine, in fact, and this is a car that could well go into production. We'll be bringing you more details on this when we report from the Tokyo Motor Show in the autumn. Hopefully, we won't be reporting on this too much in the future. This is called the Fun, the Felicia Fun from our friends at Skoda, who are trying to get street cred. And what about this? The Mercedes so-called smart car. We see it wheeled out show after show. It's almost old hat by now, and it's still not on sale. And maybe that's the best thing for it, because there are already reports that maybe the smart car is not the best handling car in the world. And here's my man who gets the unctuous Git of the Show award. Can you believe this? This is Dutch style at its best. Get off your Wally. A few years ago, I was written off as a lunatic when I said the Koreans would build a car that looked desperately like the Lotus Elan and badge it as the Kia Elan. Everybody was up in arms, the Koreans and the Brits. They said I was gone off my rocker, and look what we've got here. A car that's badged as the Kia Elan and a car that looks like the Kia Elan. Look out for it in the showrooms near you in the future. And what about this, the Indigo 3000? This is from a small Swedish company that was inspired by the TVRs and Caterhams and Lotuses that they saw at the London Motor Fair a few years ago. And they thought, if British manufacturers can do it, they can do it too. Well, the star of the Amsterdam Motor Show, if there was a star, was the Mitsubishi Galant. Already it's been voted the Japanese car of the year because it's been out on sale there for a while now, but it's about to hit Europe and indeed Britain sometime this spring. We'll be bringing you far more details on this car when we drive it. Here's the estate version, which is launched at just the same time as the BMW 5 Series estate, or the Touring as BMW like to call it. And I have to say, it looks very similar. It's very much in the same price league and will attract the same sort of audience. What about the saloon? If this isn't a BMW lookalike, I don't know what is. Mitsubishi say that it's smaller than a 5 Series and are bigger than a 3 Series, so it's not really a competitor to the cars from Munich. But how about a competitor for the BMW 4 Series? Not that there is one yet. That's what we like. A bit of Dutch totty advertising a boring car. In case you're interested, and I know you're not, this lady's promoting the Nissan Primera, and my God, does it need it. Here's one of the so-called promotional girls at the highly tasteful Amsterdam Motor Show. She's with a pig. Quite what they're doing, we're not sure, but we're reliably informed that the pig is underneath and the promotions lady is on top. Mind that towel, girl. But the great thing about coming to a motor show is that you never know what you might find tucked away. And look what I found. This amazing little Fiat electric car, and it's called the Zixter. Apart from that, we don't know much else about it, but it's got a great exterior, great interior, and we're going to be telling you more as soon as we get more from Fiat in Turin.
The well-travelled Mike Rutherford, who is the original frequent flyer. Are you thinking of getting away yourself this year? Most people go on holiday to get away from home. In America, the fashion is to take the whole lot with them. Let's join Steve Parker at Beachside, California.
Beautiful Pacific Ocean, the beach and the breeze. It's like an episode of Baywatch. It's the perfect vacation. When Americans go on vacation, even if the beach is 3,000 miles away, they don't like to leave the comforts of home at home. They want the microwave, they want the hot shower, they want the kitchen sink. So how do we solve the problem of those comforts? Well, we simply bring them with us. And forget that sad little British caravan. American motorhomers aspire to every conceivable comfort, and the price for domestic mobility can be anything up to $500,000. Folks at Dockweiler Beach are aiming high.
It's got a microwave oven, it's got television front and rear. I even have a satellite dish that goes with it. Refrigerator, freezer, ice maker, stove and an oven, queen size bed, a double bed, and then a bed that comes out of the ceiling that's motorized.
It's a 454 Chevrolet. A lot of power and move right along with the car. It has everything in the inside: microwave, bath, half bath, toilet, oak wood cabins in the inside. It's very nice.
It's a Georgie boy. It's 28 foot. We've got 2 TVs, and we've got a little living room area, and we've got a kitchen, and then we have a shower and a bathroom and a queen-size bed in the back.
Well, it's a 35-foot Alpha Gold, and I pull it with a Chevy 454 one-ton truck, and it's all self-contained, generator, TV, you name it, it's got everything.
There are three basic kinds of recreational vehicles you'll see on the roads in America. The first is called a fifth wheel. That's this trailer behind me here, and that room extension is called a rollout. It adds a whole other room to the trailer. The hook on the fifth wheel trailer fits into the back of a pickup truck, and you tow it along. It's very simple. They range in price from about $25,000 to maybe $70,000. This looks like a more conventional kind of camping trailer that you would see on the beach at Rill. This is called a travel trailer, and you simply have a tow hook and a tow bar to tow it along. And the third and final kind of RV in America is the king of the hill, the self-contained motorhome. And these guys have driven theirs 300 miles today just to get to cooler weather. First job, unhook the car they've been towing. Then it's time to back up using the onboard surveillance camera, and so their cocktails don't get spilt when it's time to socialize, the whole rig is leveled up with hydraulic jacks. Party time!
Sometimes we get a little loud at night because we like to party, and then you have your little church people over here that want to stay quiet.
I love people, and when you love people, it doesn't matter who they may be or the pigment of the skin. I just love people, and I don't have no problem fitting in no place I go.
Everyone is very helpful. We get together, we have bonfires, especially up at Bridgeport. At night, we have desserts, things like that. It's just great.
A little bit more length would be nice. And a washer and dryer and a jacuzzi would be fine too.
Self-containment and absolute freedom. The freedom to go where you want, when you want, for as long as you want. That's the essence of the American dream.
Somehow I don't think that great American dream would fit the B and C roads of our holiday areas. You're watching Four Wheels Good. We always try to keep abreast of the fast-moving events in the motoring industry. Ginny Buckley now reports on changes that may be afoot at Aston Martin.
Aston Martin chief quits in policy row, screamed the headline in last week's Evening Standard. But the news that David Price, the man credited for the remarkable turnaround in Aston's fortunes, had quit due to differences with the parent company Ford about Aston's future, actually couldn't be further from the truth, according to Aston Martin themselves. Their spokesman confirmed to us that Price is leaving the company, but he's actually retiring and will work as a consultant and advisor outside the motor industry. Bob Dover, the current MD and chief exec, is to take the helm as executive chairman. Aston Martin also denied that there are plans to scrap production of the last all-British supercars, to concentrate instead on the highly successful DB7. Their spokesman told us that production at the Newport Pagnell factory, home to Aston since 1952, is actually set to expand by 25% in order to satisfy demand for the craftsman-built supercars. Every Aston Martin is produced individually to meet the owner's requirements. The 300 craftsmen at Newport Pagnell spend no fewer than 15 weeks paying painstaking attention to detail to produce each of the V8 supercars. And production of the company's most successful model, the DB7, will continue at their Bloxham plant, which is working to capacity to keep up with demand. And what of those rumours that Ford are putting Aston up for sale, with an estimated price tag of between £50 and £60 million? Well, Ford are unavailable for comment, but Aston are quick to point out that they've just had 2 record years, and it makes economic sense for Ford to hang on to them. Rest assured, James Bond, there'll be a British supercar for you to drive in your next movie.
That is, of course, unless he's really taken by the BMW Z3 he enjoyed in GoldenEye, if you remember. Bond, of course, would insist on the latest technology in his car. After the break, the ultimate gadget stuffed into a Mercedes-Benz, which can actually drive itself. Hi and welcome back to Four Wheels Good. It's been a technologist's dream to design a car which can safely drive itself, without the need of operation by one of those terribly inefficient and unreliable human beings. The Americans have developed systems where cars can follow buried wires in the road, but a European consortium seems to have gone one better. Here's Peter Baker.
The automobile has developed the human race more than any other invention, as personal transportation has become available to more and more people. In 1986, 100 years after the invention of the car manufacturers across Europe reflected on the success of the car and of the problems the invention brought to the planet. Traffic density problems are everywhere. Overloaded roads, overheated tempers, noise, pollution, accidents. On the initiative of Daimler-Benz, all the major European automotive manufacturers and suppliers got together in 1986 to carry out a joint research project called Prometheus. A huge pan-European traffic computer model had to be realized in order to understand road traffic as part of overall transportation systems. And how could state-of-the-art radio communications practically help motorists? Any new concept would have to substantially improve road traffic in Europe and its free flow in general. The advantages? Fewer jams, lower fuel consumption, less pollution of the environment, greater safety, less stress, better cost effectiveness. Daimler-Benz, together with Mercedes-Benz, have come up with many innovations, including an automated driving system to reduce accidents. Human reaction time can be too long. Computers are accurate and never get impatient. The researchers asked what would an automated driving system look like that would help to prevent collisions. This vehicle, called Vita, may be the answer. It has an electronic autopilot that can drive the car automatically. Several camera eyes monitor the view up to 200 meters away. Here, the view to the front. The camera recognizes the markings on the road. The surroundings to the rear and the side are monitored by means of electronic stereoscopic cameras. In this way, the computer knows at any time what other objects there are, at what distance, and what direction. Amazingly, the computer can also recognize traffic signs, understand them, and comply with them. It can control the car's braking and steering systems. For example, if the cameras discover a slower vehicle ahead, the computer determines whether the parallel lane is empty, whether another vehicle is approaching from behind, and whether it's safe to change lanes. If everything's okay, it overtakes. The idea isn't to replace the driver with this Daimler-Benz Prometheus system, but to demonstrate that accidents can be avoided using computer-aided vision. At the moment, this system is far too expensive to be fitted on a production car, but this intelligent cruise control could be on an option list soon. If the road is free, the cruise control works as usual. You travel at your selected speed. However, in dense traffic, the built-in distance measurer comes into action. 5 infrared transmitters emit signals which are reflected by vehicles ahead. These are received back again by a sensor. The onboard computer then works out the necessary safety distance and automatically decelerates or brakes. Once the road is free again, the car is accelerated to the previously set speed in order to remain in the traffic flow. Future tweaks to this intelligent cruise control will take into account the state of the road surface. After all, if the road is wet, a longer safety distance would need to be calculated. A further innovation is communication with road signs. Here, small transmitters are installed on signs, and if a car with a built-in receiver approaches, the LED in the speedo shows the appropriate speed. But of course, it's up to the driver here whether he sticks to the limit or not.
Exactly. The most dangerous part of a car is the nut which holds the steering wheel. Well, the start of the Formula One season is round the corner, and over the next few weeks we'll be previewing the various teams' fortunes. Now let's join Stirling Moss in conversation with Mike Rutherford.
We're joined again by our old friend Stirling Moss, living legend, I think it's fair to say. You'd go along with that, wouldn't you, Stirling?
Thank you very much, yeah.
He's a living legend. I'm a cult. Only the other day somebody said to me, you're a complete cult, Mike. Think about it, Stirling.
Yes, I am.
One word for you, or one name for you. Schumacher. And not just Michael, think Ralph as well. We're in for an interesting season because the two Schumacher brothers are out there. Michael, I think we know an awful lot about. What about Ralph?
There's no doubt the car should be reasonably competitive, and if he is as good as one led to believe, he's going to need experience, and it's difficult to get experience unless you've done the races, and he hasn't done that many races. Well, that many races for Formula One, of course, he hasn't done any.
He's been a great success, of course, in Formula 3000, I think, and he knows some of the circuits, of course, because he's raced at places like Suzuka in the past. How much help do you think he's going to get from his brother?
I would think a reasonable amount of help. I would have thought he could talk him through an awful lot of situations. But when it arises, he can't turn to his brother and say, "What do I do now?" He's got to have it in here. And I would assume that they are fairly close from what we hear, and therefore I think his brother would help him where he might not sort of pour it out to other people. I always like to think, from my point of view, that I'd like to think I could give people like yourself quite a lot of experience of what racing's about. But then when the chips are down, it's down to you. And
You're on your own.
Yeah, exactly. You can't avoid that.
Now, coming back to Michael, I mean, just how good is this guy? You talk about Fangio and Senna.
Did you see? The race we have to go back to because it really showed it amazingly. It was Barcelona.
Yeah.
Now he was going round the outside of the other guys, and the thing that one needs to understand is the reason you're on the inside is because it gives you a bit of freeway that if you overdo it, you can slide out and you're okay. Now we all know that if you go around a circle, the bigger the circle, the faster it is. So we know going around the outside is quicker. But who has the ability to drive with that precision on the edge? And there's no doubt that Michael Schumacher does. He was going round the outside of drives because he knew he could do it.
In the wet.
In the wet. Now, driving in the wet and the dry is quite different. And when you're driving in the wet, which is something I rather liked anyway, you need to be more not cautious, but more delicate on the throttle. You don't give a lot of throttle, you don't bang on the brakes hard, you don't steer very hard. Everything is done with a certain smoothness. And I think it just shows how smooth this man must be, because he does it exceptionally well.
All right, so, but if we're talking of rankings over the generations, Fangio comes out number one by a mile.
Yeah. Senna, Clark, very difficult to compare, but I think probably I'd put them tie. And Schumacher is certainly coming up there.
Top five, you'd say?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily, because I don't know enough about Nuvolari, Rosemar, Caracciola, who in their day were fantastic. There's no two ways about it. Nuvolari particularly, but I think that was the passion. I think maybe Nuvolari was a bit more like Jacques Villeneuve's father, Gilles, who was fantastic to watch, but really and truly it was not the intelligent way to drive. And maybe that was the same with Nuvolari, who was a fantastic little man. So of the era that I know since the war, shall we say, yes, certainly I think the ones you named.
And how can you, I know you can look at results, but results are not everything. How can you look at somebody like Michael and just say, this guy has got it? What is it about him that tells you he does everything over and above what everyone else does?
Because when there's a small gap, he makes it a wide opening. He goes. He's in there like that. There's no hesitation. There's no thought. It isn't a case of bravery or stupidity. It's just a case of, well, that's the place to be, and he is there. If you watch him when he's in a hurry, you can really see the man's moving fast, the same as you could with Ayrton. You could really see that he was in a hurry. Other drivers look in a hurry because they're sliding, but you realise that sliding isn't necessarily the quickest way. With these guys, they are just threading their way through that fast, and it's just a thing that one, I suppose, if you have the experience, or you watch it and you know it, you can see it.
It's the old classic, isn't it? You've either got it or you haven't. He's obviously got it. When he climbs out of the car as well, he always impresses me. He's speaking in a second language. Sometimes sounds more eloquent than people like me speaking in their first language. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he is very methodical, I know. Yes. He doesn't smile as often as he should in press conferences and stuff. But, I mean, you get the feeling this man is very, very bright, whether he's in a motor car, sitting behind a desk, sitting in the pits after dark when he's talking to his mechanics.
Sure. Well, I mean, with Fangio, who after all couldn't speak really anything but actually, of course, he was Argentinian and he did speak Italian. But at an English press conference, he couldn't communicate with people. But nevertheless, you realise he had a presence, and somehow I think Michael Schumacher's got a presence. When he's there as a winner.
Anything that tells you that Ralph might be a chip off the old block? Can you see a time when maybe Michael will retire in 4 or 5 years' time and say, over to my brother, he inherits the crown?
Ask me that question after at least the first race, when we see how he is, what his tactics are, what he is in practice, what he does in qualifying, what he does in the race itself. In a few races we'll know the answer. Not yet, though, I don't think.
Not a bad start, though, is it? Great little car.
Tremendous. I think it's a tremendous start, but we've seen other guys start very fast and not necessarily carrying it on. And I'm hoping, for instance, Johnny Herbert may be able to pick the ball up again, but I doubt it. But it'd be nice to think he could.
Well, more from Stirling next week. After the break, a focus on 3 more teams on the eve of this season's Formula One. Hi, welcome back. You're watching Four Wheels Good here on Granada's Men and Motors channel. Well, now here's a look at some more of the teams in this year's Formula One. This week we focus on the Tyrrell, Benetton and Ligier teams.
This year's Formula One cars have been launched and testing is in full swing for the March the 9th meeting in Melbourne, Australia. This week on 4 Wheels Good we look at Tyrrell, Ligier and Benetton teams. Tyrrell's lineup is strong, with Dutchman Joshua Stebbin joining Niki Salo, both selected for their talent rather than their financial pulling power. The Tyrrell is powered by Ford ED V8 engines, which are not the newest or the most powerful engines around. Tyrrell are staying with Goodyear tyres for the season.
An opportunity to speak to the key members of our...
On the design side of the car for this season, engineering director Harvey Postlethwaite hasn't introduced any radical ideas this year, but one piece of fine-tuning is the nose fin, which has had some changes to it.
It's just a little aerodynamic improvement. It's added to all the other little bits and pieces. It's just a little step in the right direction. It's less interference. It just allows us to do certain things with the front wing which we couldn't do otherwise. So it's just a little step forward.
For a while.
Finnish driver Niki Salo hopes that the Ford engines will be more reliable than the Yamahas the Tyrrell team had to use for their 4 frustrating years.
It should be very reliable, and they found a lot more power from it since last year, so I think it will be.
Ken Tyrrell is one of the great survivors and is approaching his 30th year as a Formula One entrant.
I saw my first motor race in 1951, and I caught the bug. And once you catch the motor racing bug, God help you. Look where it's landed me.
That undiminished enthusiasm has helped him through some lean times in recent years. The team's aims this year include increased reliability, which will allow regular points. Initial testing at Silverstone was just a systems check before the cars went on to Estoril for a more constructive and systematic effort. Anyone who thinks they'll get a conclusive result from Silverstone in the winter has another thing coming. Niki Salo is the senior driver entrusted with the car here with that distinctive V8 rasp. Joshua Stebbin's been on the Grand Prix podium on 2 occasions in 1994 when he was driving for Benetton. Now, he was the test driver who eventually replaced the injured JJ Leto as support to Michael Schumacher. The Dutchman's rise was pretty meteoric, as he'd only been in 25 car races before hitting the big time. Recently, he's been on the fringes with occasional drives for the ill-fated Simtech team, and last year for Arrows. Testing here at Silverstone also meant that the latest modifications to the circuit could be tried out. Some sections have been smoothed and Copse Corner has once again been reprofiled. One of the advisors for the alterations was former Jordan driver Martin Brundle. Well, 1997 is a critical year for Benetton. With no wins since Michael Schumacher left, they've also lost chief designer Ross Brawn, who's gone to Ferrari, and the experienced Rory Byrne, who's gone to open a scuba diving school in Thailand, like you do. The new Renault 3-litre engine has been publicly unveiled. It's been tested by both Williams and Benetton. The new car has been designed by Pat Simmons, who's got rid of the 7-speed gearbox in favour of the 6. Johan Lacey and Gerhard Berger are joined by Le Mans winner Alexander Wurz, who's the test driver. Lacey, who finished 4th in the championship last year, is his usual confident self.
Benetton at the moment is very competitive. People are really together, and that is also very important because in the teams is many people, and sometimes characters are not fitting each other. At the moment, everything is fine.
Gerhard Berger is circumspect about the opposition.
It's too early to say too much because other cars are not ready yet. I'm waiting hard for the new Williams. Williams usually is able to make a good surprise. McLaren is on the way up. Ferrari, I'm sure, doing well. So I have to say we have to wait a little bit.
Celebrity support came from Chelsea footballer Gianluca Vialli.
Maybe this can be a good luck for the Benetton, because Benetton this year is going to win something of important, I'm sure, because the team is very strong and the drivers are two of the best in the racing.
Benetton's budget this year is £70 million and they have a staff of 230 to support. One team that did win last year is Ligier, who took a well-deserved win at Monaco. It was appropriate that another part of Formula Flevio should unveil their cars in the Principality. The immediate future for the team is probably with Alain Prost, who is lining up investors to help buy the team and eventually use engines from Peugeot. Fabio Briatori's interest in Ligier came when he wanted to supply Peugeot engines to Benetton 3 years ago. The team currently use Mugen Hondas, which have to be paid for. The tyre department has Bridgestones installed, especially effective in wet weather testing. The team, well, Pedro Denis has been lost to the Arrows, and this season the team gains Shingo Nakano from Japan's Formula Nippon. Number 1 is Monaco winner Olivier Panis. He took the JS45 for a spin around the famous city roads for the benefit of the Granada Men and Motors cameras.
More Formula One teams covered next week here on Four Wheels Good. Well, let's get off the racetrack now, back to the domestic market in a comfortable executive car, the BMW 8 Series. But isn't the style back in the 1980s? Patrick Fuller has been enjoying the ride.
When you take a look at this car behind us, you could be forgiven for thinking that we've actually landed back in the 1980s, couldn't you, Patrick? This is such an 80s throwback, it's amazing.
Well, it certainly seems that way. I mean, it's quite a traditional recipe of muscle car, power plus quite streamlined looks. It's very German looking, I think. It gives off that impression of efficiency, but it has, this huge engine. It's almost 300 bhp, so you've got a lot of power going to the rear wheels, so it's quite a thrills machine as well.
It's almost excessive, really, isn't it? What kind of person is going to own this car?
Well, you're really looking at your company director, someone who's made it in life. He hasn't got any children. If you look in the back of the car, it's tiny. You can fit a couple of people in, but only at a pinch. He's really someone who wants to cruise but has the performance if you might need it.
Apparently, I have heard a rumour that George Michael owned one.
Indeed, yeah, this is the what I hear as well, although I'm not sure that it would really fit his image today. Sort of the sharing, caring George Michael probably wouldn't be seen dead in something big and Leviathan like this.
But it was the excessive one days of the 80s.
That's right, it came at the end of the 80s, but it has a sort of 80s feel about it. And I think it was BMW trying to do what Porsche did with the 928. It's a Grand Tourer, it's got performance, it's got image, but in some strange way they didn't quite pull it off, and it's never been a big seller, and really it's on its last legs now.
So if it's kind of almost on its way out, why are you looking at it? At what car?
Well, BMW have recently fitted their new gearbox. It's a new automatic gearbox that has a manual override, which kind of adds to the sportiness of the car. And it's a very clever gearbox, and it's something that interests us because a lot of manufacturers are doing semi-automatic gearboxes. They have the convenience of an auto, and yet you can switch it to manual mode if you fancy it.
Now, you've been driving this car for about a week. How often have you actually used that gearbox?
Well, this is a problem. I haven't used it that much. I like the automatic gearbox. It's a great gearbox. It's a ZF. It's very good. You climb through the rev smoothly. Changes are very slick. So I don't really feel like using the manual. To be honest, I just want to sit back and relax. I've really only used it for engine braking. When I've been coming up to a junction, I just stick it down a gear to slow the car a bit and get a bit more control. But really, I'd rather have a gear stick than if I was going to have a manual at all. I'd rather just have the stick in my hand.
It strikes me with this car that it's almost wasted, really, on the people that can afford it.
I know what you mean. I think you're right. It's a potentially a very fun car. It's got all this power going to the back end. You know, you can make it step out of line if you switch off the anti-skid control, which isn't always a good idea in the wet. But having said that, it is a very sedate cruiser as well.
I have to say, Patrick, that I'd feel totally out of place in this car in jeans and a woolly jumper.
Yeah, it certainly gives off that impression of Teutonic efficiency. You feel like you ought to be wearing a sort of carbon fibre suit, really.
What's it like to drive then? How does it handle? Has it got that old BMW quality feel about it?
It has. It's a surprisingly wide car. It's the dimensions are deceptive from where you're sitting, but it's got a fantastic driving position. You know, I feel absolutely at home in it. And the way everything's laid out, everything's adjustable. You've got electric adjustment on the seat, so you know basically everything's done for you. It's a very nice place to be.
Now, it really should be a nice place to be, though, because this car costs more than my house. How much did you say it was?
It's £56,000, so it's really right up there with the expensive coupes from people like Jaguar and Porsche. And it's really the sort of coupe stroke Grand Tourer that's becoming back into fashion now. They went through a bit of a lean period, and really this car suffered as a result. Early in the 90s, this sort of car was not fashionable. I think Jaguar's new XK8 is going to bring them back into fashion, but this car's a bit too old really to take advantage of it.
Yeah, so you feel that the market will really be going towards the XK8, which is new and it looks very up to the minute.
It does. I mean, the XK8 doesn't have the huge power that this has got, but it handles beautifully, the XK8. It's a very comfortable car to be in, and really the looks of the thing, which when you're talking about this sort of car is very important to a buyer, the way, the image it gives off. And I think really the XK8 knocks this into a cocked hat.
A magnificent vehicle. Well, join us next week when Ginny will be driving the new Chrysler Voyager in Vienna, and we'll have news from this year's Geneva International Motor Show. So, from all of us here, goodbye.